everybody, this is the Wild Ass Podcast, and I am your host, Wild Ass Craig. This is episode 15, and in this episode, I get to introduce all of you to Ben Phaup. He's a guy that you may not have heard of before this show. As those of you that have been following me may remember, back in September of 21, I went to this event in Greer, South Carolina called the BMW GS Trophy Qualifier. This is where I met Ben. They split all of the entered riders up into groups of 3, and it was Ben, Charles, and myself that would be spending the next 3 days together. I got to know him through our mutual support of each other, as we were not only cheering each other on, but after the first day, we had actually traded cell phones and recorded video of each of our rides. Ben's a guy that was not only there to win it, but he was there to make sure he helped out whoever was with him. I like to think of that as, I don't just want to win, but I want to beat everybody when they're at their best. And I have a lot of respect for this, by the way. In this podcast, we're going to learn more about Ben, more about him as a person, his riding history, and just how he got himself into the GS Trophy representing Team USA as they head over to Albania. Ben, welcome to the show.
Hey, Craig, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We've had a tough time connecting, it seems.
We have, yeah. Our schedules haven't aligned the greatest. Both been a little busy.
It's been a little bit busy, and I will take the blame for this. So I appreciate you getting together with me now, because I don't know, as the listeners may or may not know, I think you leave in about a week, right?
Yeah, a week on the day.
Okay.
So next Thursday I'll be on a plane.
So Thursday, so that tells you we are recording this on the night of Thursday, the 25th of August. So we'll talk more about that coming up. But first, I want to hear more about your story. More, as a kid, you had, I think, was it 6 brothers and sisters?
Yes, yeah, big homeschooled family, and a lot of us to wrangle around and to get into trouble with.
That's a lot of wrangling for a homeschool. Your mom must have been a saint.
Yeah, I don't know how she did it now that I've got 2 kids of my own and a third one on the way. And the thought of having 7 is a bit overwhelming. I didn't really appreciate that till I became a parent myself. And I honestly don't know how she did it, but we had fun growing up.
Yeah, no kidding. And I got to meet your mom down at the qualifier. What a sweetheart. Great. I mean, I can tell why you are the way you are, because your mom, your wife, everybody, very cool, very laid back. It was fun hanging out with you guys for sure. You talked about your wife. You have 2 kids on the way and one on the way. 2 kids and one on the way.
Just one on the way. 2 kids and one on the way. Better not be 2 on the way.
You might as well double things, right?
Yeah.
Your wife, does she ride too?
She rides occasionally with me. She more puts up with it. My shenanigans, not really her thing, but occasionally I can get her to go out and take relaxing rides together. That's about the extent of it.
Okay. Yeah, and with kids at home, I mean, you can't blame her. She must be a bit of a saint as well to let you go off and play while she's taking care of the kids.
Yeah.
They're younger, right?
Yeah, she has. It is. Yeah, I've got a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, and the 3-year-old, his passion for riding takes up where my wife Jessica's is lacking a little bit. He's got the bug worse than I do, and that's anything with wheels he is crazy about. And he loves hopping on the bike, riding around the yard with me, and he's got a little Strider bike and the electric Stasic bike, so he follows me around. I'll be training, and he'll be following me through cone courses, and he eats it up. He loves it.
Oh, that's awesome. I've seen video of that on your Facebook page. I love it. Absolutely love it. So when's the PW50 going to come home?
Well, I actually already have one. I've had it for a while, but he's ridden on it, but he can basically only touch the pegs barely. So I've put him on it, but I have to be right there with him the whole time because he likes to just pin the throttle and pin it to win it.
Right.
So the Stasic so far has worked out really well, and he just rips on that for as long as the battery will last.
No, that's cool. I was watching that video, and I don't remember which one it was. I think you were doing like the back and forth weaving through the boxes.
Yeah, doing a garage, and he's following me through it every step of the way. If he's out there with me, he will get very upset if I don't allow him to follow me through it.
And those extra obstacles, they got to help when you go to the trophy, right? Yeah, work around
Yeah,
him.
I definitely have to be pretty careful, kind of only half paying attention to my riding when he's out there because he's ripping around everywhere and he's getting better about following me, but he occasionally will run right in front of me and stuff. And so
Yeah, yeah.
definitely keeping an eye out for him the whole time, making sure he's not putting himself in a bad spot.
That's awesome. I was some of your history. First, I got to thank you. 8-year Marine vet, right? You served 8 years, was it? Did a little
I
time in
did, yeah.
Iraq. Tell me about your service. What did you do?
I was a combat engineer. Joined at 17, right out of high school. Turned 18 in boot camp. Ended up turning 21 in Iraq. Let's see. I'm kind of jumping forward a little bit, but
So you were
I
in
did,
you
yeah.
were in quite a while after that then if you were there for 8 years.
Yeah, I guess I got out at, what was that, 25? At that point, I had gotten what I wanted out of it, and it was time to move on. So,
Well, I appreciate the
all in
service,
all,
so definitely thank you for that. It gives all of us out here the ability to do what we want to do. So thank you.
yeah, no problem.
And your family for putting up with it. I can imagine the stress. So from
Yeah,
there, go ahead. No.
I was just going to say, yeah, it was going to Iraq and stuff was definitely stressful on them, much more so than me. I didn't really care, but there was a lot of tears on the goodbyes going over there.
Yeah, for sure. After you left, is that when you got into commercial diving? Like, kind of give us your job history.
So once I came back, I think it was a year after I got back. I went to school and got certified as a commercial diver. Figured I would give that a try. I've been trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up for my whole life. So therefore, I've done a few different things. But yeah, tried the commercial diving, doing underwater welding, and basically general construction underwater. Did that for about a year and didn't love it. It sounded cool at first, but when it came down to it, getting wet every single day was kind of got old.
Oh, I bet.
Right before, like a month before Jessica and I were getting married, ended up getting laid off from that. And so it just ended up finding something else to do and never went back to it.
It worked out well.
It did, but it was, I don't regret it. It was still a fun experience and not something that a ton of people do. So
I don't know anybody that's done it, actually, other than you now. Just you.
After diving, I did logging for a while. I've done that off and on since 18. It's always been my stopgap.
Okay.
If I needed work, there's plenty of that in the area. So yeah, I did after commercial diving, back to logging for a bit, and then I did go to North Dakota a few years later. Got a job out there in the oil fields working on a service rig, and left Jessica home at first. I was like, let me go out and see how it is and see if this is something worth pursuing, and if you should, if it's good, I'll bring you out later. And it became evident really fast. As soon as I got out to North Dakota, I was like, nope, you'll hate it out here.
Right. Where were you at?
I was in Watford City, so it's kind of on the west side of North Dakota, right in the Badlands. Which the Badlands were cool, but being on the East Coast in the mountains and trees, and it's quite a bit different out there.
Yeah, for sure.
It was very, very much just an oil field town and pretty rough, and not something that Jessica would have enjoyed a whole lot. So
yeah, I've not heard a lot of people that go out there and really fall in love with the place. So
yeah, I mean, everybody does it for the money. I mean, that's really the only reason anybody does it and puts up with the work, because you're working 70 to 100 hours a week, and it's a lot. But that's where, and I guess circling back to riding, I'd always enjoyed riding growing up, but when I was out in North Dakota, that's when it kind of clicked that, all right, this is something I really like. I had a coworker that was selling a KX 250 that he had blown it up, so I bought it for $500 and sent it to the shop. They rebuilt it, because when I was the little bit of time I was off, there was nothing to do. So I was like, well, I'll get a dirt bike and explore around the Badlands, and we're right in the national grasslands.
Okay.
So once I got that back, first ride out, I almost jumped it right into a river.
Got to be aware of your surroundings.
Oh man, I was going down this road, and it was closed, and they had some tank traps, and I was like, whatever, I want a dirt bike. I'm going over the tank traps, and out there, I learned this pretty quickly, but I guess everything blends in and there can be a big drop and you won't see it because you can see just grass on the other side and it just looks flat. And I jumped over one of these tank traps and the bridge that was supposed to be there was missing, which like you couldn't see it at all until I was flying over the tank trap.
Sure.
And it's a river and I almost landed right in it. I came skidding down, my tires stopped like right at the edge of the river. I was like, whoa, well, it was close. I didn't want to think it first ride after it had been rebuilt, and so I took it a little bit easier after that. This was your first bike,
right?
No, I had various dirt bikes growing up.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. How did you get into motorcycling? Were you what age? How did you get into motorcycling?
I think I was probably 6 or 7, and I remember seeing some magazine. I don't remember what it was, but it was people doing motocross on it, and I was like, that's really cool. I wanted to do motocross, and my parents had a hard no to that. It was not going to happen while I was in their house. They were not a fan of motorcycles at all. So eventually, a couple years later, it was kind of always something I wanted to do and just never happened. But made a friend that was on a farm. He ended up having 2 dirt bikes, the XR100 and a KX100. So he taught me how to ride. My parents were not aware of this. I'd go over there and hang out, and him and his parents taught me how to ride in their front yard. And then they had a 7,000-acre farm, and we would just go exploring all day, just take off, ride all over the place. So that was kind of my first real introduction to dirt bikes. That's where I learned to ride by the school of hard knocks a little bit.
Yeah. And
then had various bikes growing up that were we weren't allowed to actually own a bike because, like I said, my parents were very much against it just for the safety factor. They thought they were very dangerous, which they're not wrong. But so eventually had a friend of my parents, I should say, that had, he was a big motorhead, loved motorcycles. And he kind of thought up of an ingenious way of getting us a bike. They had it was a 77 YZ80 old race bike it was just in pieces. They had a couple of them in boxes, and so he told my parents he would give us the bike, but he would teach us how to rebuild it, and after we were done, we could have it.
Sure.
And so my parents agreed because we were learning a mechanical skill, and it wasn't just getting a bike, and of course we had to pay for all the parts, but his labor and everything was free as far as helping us rebuild it. So we rebuilt the thing from the ground up, and once we were done, had that thing would scream.
Those bikes back then were ridiculously fast.
Yes. Yeah. 2-stroke, and that thing, just the power band was insane on that thing. You'd pop a wheelie in every gear. So kind of after that, always had something around, but it wasn't, like I said, it was an interest, but it really wasn't a passion at that point. So circling back to North Dakota, when I had that KX250 out there, that's kind of when it clicked, and I was like, all right, this is something I really like, mainly because I didn't have anything else to do out there other than ride and explore, and ended up, after I almost jumped in the river, a little bit further on in the day, same ride, I still wasn't a great rider. Like I wasn't even okay. I was a bad rider. We'll go with that. I went through a mud puddle, and I crashed, and I'm out in the middle of nowhere by myself. Didn't know anybody out in North Dakota. I take it back. A couple of my coworkers, but not really friends. And I get the bike up, and it wouldn't start. I'm like, all right, this is not good. I was like, out in the grasslands, like, how do you tell someone where you are? It's just
there's not much for landmarks out there.
No, it really isn't. Like, if you don't know the exact trail, which I did not. So eventually, it took a while. I think it flooded when I crashed, but eventually it started up, and I was like, all right, this is a bad idea riding by myself. I ended up just putting something out on Facebook like, hey, is anybody in the area that rides? And a guy replied, and he's actually still my best friend to this day, replied. And he's like, yeah, we ride out there all the time. Come ride with us. I hooked up with them, and first ride out with them had a really bad crash.
I suppose trying to keep up with the locals.
Yeah, they had been riding a decent bit more, so they were quite a bit better than I was. And I kind of got caught by the depth perception thing out there, where you just can't there'll be big dips and you just can't see them. And anyway, I was going up this hill, and you can see it was a trail going up the hill, but the trail turned and there was a big drop off, and you kind of turned and went around this drop off. But coming straight up it, it looked like it was just a straight shot. So as I'm riding up this hill, the trail basically just drops out from under me, and I crash into the embankment on the other side. And as I go over the handlebars, I catch the handlebar right to the crotch.
Oh, no.
It laid me out for a long time. And everybody there was laughing. They thought it was hilarious. I actually missed work a couple days from it. And I didn't break my ankle, but it was dang near close. I couldn't walk on it. And it was like 10 minutes later, I went to get up, and I was like, oh, I can't stand. I severely jacked up my ankle.
And again, out in the middle of nowhere.
At least this time I had friends with me to get the
Right.
bike up. This was my second ride on the bike.
Right.
So I got off to a rough start. But after that, it's after a recovery period. Everybody, of course, knew who I was after that. Like, oh, you're really good.
Made famous.
Yeah.
Made
instantly.
famous by one crash. So after that, once you got through the KX 250 learning phase, what bikes did you have leading up to the bike you have now?
After the KX, I started doing hair scrambles, and I actually did that a little bit on the KX and realized it absolutely sucked at it. I got a KTM XC250.
Nice
two-stroke.
bike.
Yeah, loved it. That bike was awesome. And I've had a KTM 690, had a KTM 1090, had a BMW F650 GS Twin, so that's the 800, the street version that everybody told me not to take on the Transamerica Trail.
Sure.
I was like, yeah, the more you say don't do it, the more it makes me want to do it. And then, let's see, had a DR650. Absolutely hated that bike.
I bet. After your KTMs, yeah, that DR.
Well, I think
You had that before?
it was a little bit out of order. I had the DR, and then it went to I got the 690 right after the DR. I bought the DR more off of just everybody saying, hey, they're reliable bikes and they're great, which they are. They're good for that, but they're boring in my opinion.
They'll do everything but nothing well. That's
and
explain it.
I don't know. I prefer something. I don't mind having a little bit more maintenance and having something with some horsepower that makes it a fun ride.
Yep.
So I very quickly sold the DR. It was not a good fit for me. And then after I got the 690, I was like, all right, yeah, this is what the DR was supposed to be. And I absolutely loved the 690. And then I don't even remember why I sold the 690 and bought a 1090. I just decided I wanted to go bigger, I guess.
Yeah, more power.
Really loved the 1090. That thing's a blast. After the 1090, I sold that, and got the BMW R1200 GSA now.
That's a lot of orange to then go to a BMW. So what made you get that?
So I was pretty solidly a KTM fan. Just for the style of riding, I usually like really nasty off road, and that usually suits that pretty well. But I had a friend tell me about the GS Trophy. We were out on a ride, and he was just like, "Hey, have you ever heard about this?" I'm like, "I've heard the name. I have no clue what it is. Didn't know anything about it." And so he's telling me about it. This was right after New Zealand in 2020. I was right after that that trophy event had just happened, and so he was telling me about it, and I was like, "That sounds pretty cool." Yeah. So I started kind of looking it up a little bit, and then I heard a podcast with Sean Thomas on it, and he was talking about the kind of explaining everything about the trophy and the qualifiers and everything for that. And so once I had a little bit of information, I was like, all right, that's really cool, and that sounds like something I want to do. So you can participate in the qualifiers without owning a BMW, but if you win, you're not eligible to go. And I was like, all right, well, that ain't going to work. So,
I didn't know you could even participate.
Yeah.
I thought you had to have a GS to play.
No, from what I saw, that was yeah, you can participate, you just can't. If you win, it doesn't count.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't unless that changed.
Which
I don't
know. It kind of makes sense because it's you could have a significant advantage or disadvantage depending on what you're riding and what's happening. But anyway, so I very begrudgingly sold the 1090 because I absolutely loved that bike, and I was like, all right, I got to get a gotta buy a BMW so I can compete in this. And I was originally going to go like with an F800, and then I had a few people telling me like you should look at the 1200s. I'm like, nah, it's just too big. It just seemed big and bulky and not very maneuverable.
Right.
And then I ended up I had a chance. I trained with the guy Charles he was on the 2016 GS Trophy team. He came out, and I was still on the 1090 at this point. And he put up some cones, and we were riding different courses together. And it was like I couldn't even come close to doing it on the 1090. Like the turning radius is so terrible compared to the GSA. He was on a 2016 GSA, and I was just trying. I couldn't even come close. So he hops on the 1090, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is impossible. Like you'll never never make the turns on this." And I got on his GSA, and I was like, "Whoa! Like this thing turns on a dime." In comparison, the KTM's so long.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it for trials type stuff. I mean, from what I've seen, I mean, the 1200s seem to have a tighter turning radius than the 800s. So after riding his, I was like, all right, I think 1200 is the way to go. And then also, I was kind of in the back of my mind trying to figure out what the actual trophy bike was going to be this year, because obviously no one knew what they were going to say it was. And I was like, well, they had the 850s in 2020, so hopefully they're going back to the 1250 in 2022. So I'll get a 1200. I couldn't afford a 1250. So made the gamble, got the 1200, and got a pristine one. The guy that I bought it from I told him what I was doing. I was going to try out for the trophy qualifiers. Well, thankfully, he had no clue what the what it was when I bought it, because this bike was pristine. I mean, it looked like it came off the showroom floor. Had never been off road, and he had told me when I was there looking at it that he's like, yeah, people try to take these off road, and they're just not off road bikes. And I'm like, well, that's kind of what I'm going to do with it. And anyway, after I bought it and left, he looked up what the GS Trophy was, and I think he had seller's remorse. He was like, I don't know if I would have sold that to you if I knew what you were going to do to it. And so he's had, I think, quite a few cringeable moments watching me train and just trashing his baby.
Right.
And it's not nearly it's still in good shape, but it's had some nasty stuff happen to it compared to how it was when I bought it.
I've seen some of the pictures on Facebook. So you bought the 1200 knowing that you were going to try to qualify for the trophy.
Yeah.
Also,
yeah.
You've posted some riding video, but you'd done the Transatlantic Trail, right?
Transamerica?
Or Transamerica Trail, I'm sorry. So I was going to say, how far did you make it? Where did you start? How far did you go? I think a lot of people don't really know what the Transamerica Trail is. So tell us a little bit about that. Where you started, where you finished, and what is the trail like?
So the Transamerica Trail, it's all public roads technically, but it's a dual sport route that goes coast to coast. Depending on whose maps you use, it varies the starting point somewhere between the coast of North Carolina to kind of the edge of Tennessee. There's two different routes that are very, very similar but different. So that's what got me transitioning into dual sports. So I was like, all right, I can't carry luggage on a dirt bike, so I need to get something a little bit bigger. So me and the buddy that I actually met in North Dakota dirt bike riding, he lived in Idaho at the time. I was like, hey, you want to do this? So we planned for about a year, and so I actually sold him the DR650. I had gotten it all ready for that trip, and just realized I hated the bike. So I was like, hey, fly out here. I'll sell it to you. It's ready to go. Everything's been done. Like it's luggage, everything. So he did that. He bought that, and I had I took the F650 Twin GS that everybody was like, yeah, don't take that because it's the same motor and not suspension, basically an F800 without the suspension and cast wheels, and it's not the most off-road capable.
Okay.
But I'm kind of the personality that the more you tell me that can't be done or it's not a good idea, the more I want to prove you wrong.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, what the heck? I'll give it a shot, see what happens.
So where did it start?
So we started in Virginia. So there's a spur that comes from New York down, and it meets the main trail right at the Tennessee, North Carolina. So we started in Covington, Virginia, took the New York spur down to It's kind of the BER route.
Okay.
Down to the main trail and got on at about Tennessee. Started heading west from there. We were also trying to do it in like 17 days, which is stupid fast. Like it's just almost impossible to maintain. Basically, if anything goes wrong, you'll never make it. So we're doing like 400 miles a day off road.
Okay.
Which
that's a lot.
On the road. Yeah, on the road that's not very hard to do. Off road, and I mean you're just on back gravel roads, and it's talking long days, 14, 16-hour days every day.
Yeah.
And we kind of had to because it was that was the longest amount of time we had that we could take off. And we're like, well, we prefer to try to do it in one shot and just kind of try to challenge ourselves versus breaking it up. Because a lot of people are like, break it up into 2 sections. And I'm like, I don't want to do that either. So we took off on that, and we did good, actually. We stayed on course until Colorado.
That's a long ways.
Yeah, so on the route, there's the main route, but then there's easy alternates and hard alternates off of it that deviate and go through different areas. Well, we had been hitting all the hard routes until Colorado, and what it didn't say on the maps was that a hard route, on the East Coast or Midwest or wherever, all the hard routes are not equally hard. It's like a hard route, Midwest, East Coast was a joke. Like they were just pretty easily just gravel roads. I mean, there was a couple spots that were a little rough, but once you hit Colorado, the hard routes got really tough. And we got off on some spots that I thought I was going to lose the GS over a cliff. So after that, it was like, all right, now no more hard routes. We're staying on the main route, not with a loaded bike. Dirt bikes have been great, but
oh yeah, I suppose you got a big full size bike, or not full size.
Yeah, well, it's like we got on this
bike.
Yeah, we got off on this one spot, and it's just like switchbacks going down the side of this, basically a cliff, just single track, but it's like all it takes is a peg or your bags to catch something and just push you over the edge, and you're gone. Like it was pretty nerve wracking, and I was like, this bike's going to go over the edge and going to be gone. I'm never going to get it back. And thankfully, we made it through there. It took a while though. So after that, it was like, all right, now stay on the main trail. So we slowed down a little bit through there. We're still doing 250 to almost 300 miles a day, which is out there. We were really pushing ourselves.
It does, and it's crazy. It doesn't sound like much, but I grew up with dirt bikes, and to ride trail, even gravel road, you're not going 60 miles an hour typically.
No,
300 miles a day, you figure 30 miles an hour is probably a pretty good average. That's probably a fast average. Yeah. That's a 10-hour day if you never stop. You still have to stop for gas. You still have to stop and eat. You still got to stop and go to the bathroom. That's a long day.
Yeah, it is. And so like I said, we were doing usually 14 to 16 hours a day, and that's with there was no stopping to smell the roses. It was, we would eat when we got fuel, and that's just kind of throw some food in our face and keep going. It was very much the pressure of the clock the whole trip, which I wouldn't do it again that way. We we did the best we could with what we had, but it wasn't the most enjoyable. It was challenging, but not the most enjoyable. So we made it to Utah, right at the Moab, and then the maps we were using, the trail splits, and on the GPSs we were using, we just had these little handheld like hunting GPSs, and they really sucked to navigate on. And you're following tracks, by the way, so it's there's no turn-by-turn navigation.
Okay.
So a lot of, especially with those, when you're trying to ride and look at like a handheld GPS.
Sure.
We had it mounted on the bars, but they're so small. You got really good at doing U-turns, and nope, there was a turn back there. And so that when the trail split, we took the wrong spur and we started heading to California instead of Oregon, and didn't know it. Got off on really, really nasty trail in Utah, right out of Moab. We're 40 to 70 miles out of Moab, and just beat the craps out of our bikes. Both of them, the DR and the BMW, both, by the time we got off this trail, we finally realized we were on the wrong track. And at that point, we had gone far enough we couldn't turn around because we needed fuel, and the closest fuel stop was continuing forward.
Sure.
So we pushed on through, and but both bikes were leaking oil. we had punched holes in the cases on
Oof.
both of them through the skid plates.
That's not good.
No, the BMW had actually sheared off all the mounts, and it was one of the sheared off mounts had punched the case and popped a hole in it. And then the DR, one of the bolts for the skid plate had gone through the case on that one. So we finally got off that trail and was able to limp back to Moab and got a bunch of JB welds, and we parked all the bikes in the parking lot, flipped them over on their side, and it looked like a big yard sale everywhere. And JB welded up all the holes in the bikes, and went and had a beer and some food while the JB weld set up. And in the end, that's what we ended up calling it there, because we had lost 2 days. Let's see, we had backtracked a day. I think it was like 3 days we'd ended up losing by taking the wrong trail. By the time we'd gotten repaired. Of course, we didn't use the JB weld putty, which we should have, which is done in like an hour. We had like the 24-hour stuff. So
Sure.
So anyway, at that point, we're like, we physically cannot make the entire trip at this point. So we ended up calling it in Moab and went separate ways. And my buddy went back to Idaho, and I went back to Virginia. And so we plan on at some point going back and finishing the last section of it. But that's the basics of that trail. It's a fun ride. I would definitely take more time to do it in the future.
So it's a lot of gravel road. Is it like side-by-side trail? Is it
no?
Jeep
and
trail,
that's kind of a
track?
misconception, is that you do have to be plated, because you're technically on roads. Most of it's gravel, some paved, very little paved, not a whole lot of that. And then some of the trails, I mean, you do get off on, there's sections that can be kind of rough, but you've got to be on a plated bike to do it. So.
Okay. How much do you think that helped you for the trophy qualifier? Let's get you there. So you bought this bike, you're going to do the trophy qualifier. What all did you do for preparation to get yourself ready for this qualifier? Because now you knew what it was. So I'm guessing everybody there, except for me, knew what the GS trophy qualifier was for. So talk about your preparation and a little bit about what you did getting ready for that.
Yeah. So, I knew before I bought the BMW that, I was like, all right, I'm going all in on this thing. Like I want to win this thing. So started trading immediately. I was training on the KTM at first till I had found the BMW and bought it. And then mainly I was training cones, slow speed trials type stuff. That's a style of riding I had never done mainly on like the KTMs, the hard off road and going fast. Same thing when I was racing hare scrambles. Speed is the thing. So going slow and playing on cones was very, very foreign, and I was terrible at it. I have a video somewhere it was right after I bought the GS, and I got cones up in the parking lot. I think my daughter was 5 at the time, and she's sitting there taking a video of me, and she's talking to the camera. And I follow her or something, and the comments from her are hilarious, because she's just like, yeah, Daddy's not very good.
You need to be posting that stuff. Especially
I need to find it. Yeah, I look back at it now and I cringe, because I'm staring at the cones like right in front of me. Like, just the form is terrible. But it was a lot of my training. I barely left the property. We got a little bit of property here, and spent a lot of time focusing on slow speed maneuvering and different cone drills, and working on the garage and all the different little rabbit tricks you see at rallies and stuff. And so nights and weekends, put in a lot of time at it, because it was kind of my strategy going in was, I was like, I don't need to be the best rider to win. I just need to be the best at the game to win.
Sure.
And so I've also, I guess with that, I did quite a bit of research on the trophy. Once I was like, yeah, I'm going to do this thing. So looked up a lot of past qualifiers, past trophy events, and then tried to replicate what they'd had, and ended up paying off really well. I was pretty decently well prepared at the actual qualifiers.
It did, and it showed. My last episode was with Sean, which was the episode right before this. Now, what most listeners, they haven't heard a podcast since, looking at the calendar back in June, because I've been busy doing my thing, working. So I have Sean's recorded, and we talked a little bit about you. You were the number one qualifier for Team USA. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was a long, for people that don't know, there was an East Coast and a West Coast qualifier. Originally, I had signed up for both because you could, in the past, you could compete in as many qualifiers as you want. However many they had, you could do. And so I had signed up for both because I wanted to double my chances of making it.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I forget, it was not long before the qualifier. I got a call from Sean, like out of the blue, which I'd never talked to, didn't know at all. I was like, well, I was very taken aback when I got a phone call from him. And they're like, yeah, you can only compete in one of them. So like, whichever one you do first, that's your score. You can do the other one, but it's just for fun.
Huh.
I was like, crap. So decided not to do the California qualifier and just do the East Coast. So after I ended up winning the East Coast, I had to wait a month to find out, because it was like I had obviously won the East Coast, but it was going off a score, so I didn't know. Even if I'd made the team, I had a pretty good feeling I'd made the team.
Well, so for the listeners that don't know what happened, we stuck around, we were watching this final qualifier, and there was no doubt. Like, you went out there first, and I think you were first. There was like an exhibition rider, and then and it was you who just crushed the exhibition rider, like made him look like a rookie. And then everybody that followed, was like, holy shit, Ben won this thing. Like, there is no denying it. And then I think it was every day I kept texting you, hey, any results? Any results? Any results? Just bugging the hell out of you. It was hilarious.
Yeah, you were texting me for a while. And I'm like, dude, I don't know. And you're like, yes, you do. You're just not saying anything. I'm like, no, I really don't know anything. Like, they have not said a word.
Yeah, so they literally did not share the results with anybody, including you, for a long time after the West Coast qualifier even.
Yeah, so there was a month in between the qualifiers, and then I think it was another month. It might have been 2 solid months of waiting for the results, and before they announced the team of what it was. Even now, I still don't know what my score was. They have not released the score, so I'm told I got first, but don't have an actual score, which is a little frustrating. Like, I want to know how I did, but I know how I did in my head. I was counting points, but
yeah, you were counting them while you were gaining them.
Well, no. So the funny thing was, I had planned going back to the final, we were getting ready to run that course. There was a couple spots that I literally planned to take points, planned dabs, I should say. So you're looking at the turns, like they're too sharp. I don't think I can make that turn, and so it was, it was 2 points if you hit 1 point for a dab, 2 points if you hit the line, and then 3 points if you drop the bike. And so I was like, well, I don't think I can make the turn, so I'll just intentionally dab and take 1 point instead of risking, taking 2 points. So I had that in two different spots that I had already planned before I ever even started, that I'm going to dab right here.
So just to give the listeners an idea of what you're talking about, if you guys go back on my Instagram, you can see where I was doing a bunch of our, like, the qualifier courses. So the final was tighter than that, and on gravel, and a bunch of different, they call them trials, connected. So it was like you had to go through what we would think was a balance beam, but it was between, was it like 20 or 30 feet of railroad ties, where the ties were stood up, and you had to go through them like it was a rut. And then you had to go into this zigzag S-curve thing that wasn't quite, it didn't look possible to me, but you made it look not terrible. And then you had to go into like a square where and then you had to do these figure eight things, all these different things back to back to back to back. And it was, I want to say, an 8 or 10 minute video. I can't remember. I'd have to look back because I recorded your final run. Yeah,
it depends on, well, mine wasn't that long, but it was,
some of them. Sorry, no. Yeah.
I think mine was, I was under 3 minutes.
It wasn't that fast, was it? Maybe.
I'd have to look. I've got it on video too. And
okay. Either way, it seemed like a super long time, and I can imagine when you're on the bike, it seems like 3 times that long.
Oh, for sure. And so your score was not only based on how accurate you were, but it was also based on time. And there again, they didn't tell you how much your time played into your score. They told you what deductions were, and the rules were different for each obstacle. So like your first one, there were spots you could dab, there were spots you couldn't dab, there was spots where you could hit cones and it wouldn't count, and other spots that would. And so you had to pay a lot of attention to the instructions when we pre-walked it before we ran through it. But yeah, it was a nerve-wracking day.
It was, but it was awesome. It was great to watch.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So the trophy
really
itself, there's 16 well, this year, I don't know if it's different in other years, but this year there's 16 3-man teams and 6 2-women teams that are going to compete, riding in teamwork tests over 7 days, and you're going to be in Albania, right? Explain where that is.
That's correct. Yeah, it's over. I didn't know where it was either when they announced. I was like, I've heard the name, but I have no clue where that is. But it's just north of Greece. If you're looking at Italy, it's to the right across the Adriatic and Ionian Seas right there. So once they released where it was, kind of did the same thing I did for the qualifier. Started like, all right, let's start doing my research on the country, the terrain, try to get an idea of what we're going to be on. So I can see why they picked it from what I've seen. Super rugged, rocky terrain. You have the Alps running right through there. Really pretty country from what I've seen, pictures and videos wise. The beaches are gorgeous, and from what they're saying, this is going to be the most technically challenging, just from the terrain, the most challenging trophy they've had to date, just because the terrain's so gnarly. Everything I've seen is just a giant rock pile.
I can't wait to watch it on video.
Yeah, it should be good. So I've been training as in many rock gardens as I can find and steep hills, and we'll see if it pays off. But did the best I could on the East Coast. So.
Yep, no, and you did fantastic. You're heading to Albania. I think you said you're flying a week from today. The event starts on the 4th of September, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we'll be there a couple days prior to it starting.
Yeah, I suppose you got to get acclimated. Hey, one thing, I don't know if this is true or not, but one thing I've heard, to set your clock, your body, to the time that you're in, is go to the beach and stand there with no shoes on. Like literally go to the beach. I don't know how long this takes. Like it seems like 30 minutes or something. But and I don't know, you can come back and tell me if this works. But something about the magnetic pull of the earth, and I don't know, these earthing people will tell you this is what you do. I don't know anybody to try it. So be my guinea pig. If it doesn't work, at least you know. But if it works, it's a little jump start on everybody else.
Yeah, I've never heard that, but yeah, nothing. Worst case is spend a little bit of time on the beach that looks really nice.
Yeah, right. I actually know exactly where the podcast is. I can send it to you where the guy talks about it.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, never heard of that.
Yep. I don't know. Random knowledge. So I happen to have some.
Okay.
So you leave, this podcast should air on the 5th. So when you guys are listening to this podcast, these guys are out riding, doing their 7-day stint. You're out there representing the United States. That's going to be cool. You talked about the bike already. You're riding 22 or is it a 23 BMW?
That would be should be a 20. It's a 23 R1250 GS, and it's all they got it tricked out for the event. Each competitor will be on brand new bikes, have our name on them, our country's flag on it, and of course all the GS Trophy decals. So that's pretty exciting. It's not every day you get a full expenses paid trip to compete and get a brand new bike and gear.
Yeah, you're full factory. And everybody's on the exact same machine, right?
Yep. Yeah, everybody's on the same machine, same gear. I think helmets and boots are the only difference. So it'll be a little hard to pick people out of, I guess, other than their numbers. But
yeah, looking at it, they're not exactly contrasting numbers, but the commentary on the TV show will tell us who you are, I'm sure. So you said all expense paid, and I believe it's everything, right? Gear, like you said, except helmet and boots, or does that count?
Yeah, so the only thing that we really had to quote unquote cover was helmet and boots. That was the only thing not provided. So we got full riding suits, brand new, the latest BMW riding suit. It's pretty sweet this year. It's new for, I guess, I don't know if they're calling it for 2023, but so we were the first ones to get those. That was pretty cool. They outfitted us with camping gear, like a tent, sleeping bag, backpack, camelback, socks, and I mean sweatshirts, all sorts of clothes and stuff. Everything's BMW, of course, and pretty sweet kit. It was fun to get in the mail and open it up and see what all was in it.
That's very cool.
Just got that 2 weeks ago. I got that.
Very cool.
So trying to get used to all the gear. So yeah, back to your question, the boots and helmet were the only thing we did have to provide, but we were able to get those sponsored. So TourTech sponsored our helmets, and then CD actually sponsored our boots. So
nice. Very nice. So that you're all going to match anyways.
We will. Yeah, that was, we wanted to actually look like a team, so make sure we had all the same gear.
Right. No, that's great. Let's see. I have to read. This reminded me of something from the trophy, but Cycle World did an article where your team journalist wrote, I'm going to quote this. I didn't write this. Ben Phaup, a Marine Corps veteran who is methodical and direct in his riding, is the strong man of the team. I have no doubt that in any challenge involving our R1250 GS units being lifted, thrown, or carried, the team will point to Ben. I watched him lift his GS like it was nothing in ways I wouldn't dare. End quote. Which reminded me of the trophy when at the qualifier somewhere you'd like half dropped your bike and caught it, and like everybody looked at each other and went, how the hell did he do that? So I thought that was funny that they wrote that because we all noticed it there as well. So that's certainly going to play to your advantage when you're going through the rocks.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I don't think about it. The GS to me is so much easier to pick up than most bikes because it doesn't fall all the way over. You know, it lands on the head. So yeah, I can pick up the GSA without getting off of it. You can weight the peg and grab the bars, and I can stand it back up without getting off. As long as it's not like off camber downhill, but flat ground, I can do that.
Yep, we've seen it.
And I think that's kind of what I did during the semifinal. It did fall over, and I yanked it up and kept going. And like to me, I don't think about it. And it was the same thing out in Utah when Justin wrote that. I'd gotten stuck and I flopped the bike over and drug it out of the hole, and kind of like, whoa. It's like, what? You do it all the time on mine. I don't know. I just don't think about it.
It's all about balance and finding the good slide point.
Yeah, I guess. And anyway,
it's funny.
I've dropped mine enough. I've gotten really good at picking it up. I'll go with that.
Let's see. Did I miss anything? Is there anything you can think of that I missed talking about the trophy, the qualifier, getting prepared?
I think that's most of it.
Have you listened to any of the previous shows?
I have not, and that's actually something I do want to listen to.
I do want to catch. You'll have plenty of time in the air to listen.
There we go. All right. Except it's an overnight flight, so I'm going to try to sleep. I have every intention of loading up on melatonin and trying to sleep overnight and hopefully curb the jet lag a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. So the reason I ask is because we have my favorite part of the show here is 5 questions. I ask you 5 questions. Obviously, now you haven't heard them, so that's good. So you don't have a prepared answer. But I'll ask you 5 questions. You answer them, and that's it. So ready? Question number 1. Question number 1. How would you describe motorcycling to somebody who has never ridden a motorcycle?
One word: freedom.
Fair enough.
It's my happy place. That's like I unwind there. I if I've had a bad day, I'll tell my wife, yep, I need some bike time and just unwind, and I can be in a bad mood and come back feeling much, much better.
Perfect. Number 2. Yep. What is the best advice you have gotten as a motorcyclist?
So the best advice I would say I got from Chris Birch, who's trainer and KTM brand ambassador, but it's a technique I still use all the time, and that's target fixation. You generally always hear that as a negative of riders getting into trouble by doing that. And his advice was it's a natural human reaction, so use it to your advantage, and that's look where you want to go. If you're on the trail, you see the line, focus on that line where you're trying to go and make it happen. Ignore everything else. And so that is something I use all the time. Like if I pick out the line, and that's like I may, hey, there's a huge rock right there. I see it, and I'm like, nope, look where I want to go. And so I've used that technique a lot.
That is actually great advice because what you said there, target fixation is always used as a negative or referred to as a negative term. But if you use it in place of look where you want to go, because we all hear look where you want to go, but target fixation,
right.
But
I've never heard the two. Right. I've never heard the two combined. So it's like, all right, if you're naturally everybody is naturally going to do this. Plan, and it's like go out riding and try it, and it's, at least for me, it's worked very well.
That's awesome.
Once that connection was made.
Yep, perfect. Question number 3. What is your favorite non-motorcycle hobby?
Probably anything outdoors. Recently did snowmobiling. I know that's kind of close, and I could totally get into that if I was in a place with a lot of snow. But yeah, pretty much anything outdoors: hunting, fishing, hiking, camping, anything like that.
Okay, you're about to go on this really awesome trip. So, question number 4: what is, I hate to say the next item, but what is now on the top of your bucket list?
That's a good question. I don't know yet. I have a lot of trips that I want to make. I'm not sure a priority yet. If Jessica hears this, she's going to cringe because she's so ready for this to be done, because this has been a 2-year thing, and she's like, no more. So I have to keep it on the down low. But I definitely want to go to Alaska, ride to Alaska and back. And then I kind of want to ride to the tip of South America and back, which both of those are obviously decently large commitments.
Just a little bit.
And then I kind of want to do the Baja, that race. I don't know exactly the order, but those are kind of the things on the radar.
Okay, cool.
Stuff I would like to do.
Okay, the last one.
And I say Baja. I want to do Baja on a big bike, not a 450.
Okay.
So
the last question is something that catches people, it stumps you. But what is something that you believe that other people think is insane? So a belief of yours that other people think that's just insane.
Well, let me think. I don't know, belief-wise, I would say I have beliefs people differ with, but I don't know about insane. Definitely have people that think some of the things I do are insane. I don't agree with them, obviously. Yeah, I don't know if I can. I don't know that I necessarily have a belief that people would say insane. I can't think of any.
Yeah, it's a stumper, and I've gotten all different kinds of answers on the show. So
yeah, I'm sure.
Let's see. I think that about wraps it up. Do you have any final words before we close this out? Any last parting words for the listeners?
I don't think so. I appreciate you having me on. It's been fun. And I guess we'll be in the midst of the trophy once this airs. So look it up, GS Trophy. You can follow along on social media: Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. If you look up.
Yeah. So that that leads me into my next.
BMW Motorrad.
Oh, there you go.
And I think any of the BMW Motorrad pages will be streaming, or I don't know about streaming, but they'll be posting daily updates on the event.
I know I will be watching them. Where can the listeners follow you?
So Facebook and Instagram is Ben Phaup.
Ben Phaup is PHAUP. What's your Instagram?
I think it's still that on it. I think it's just at Ben Phaup. I've had an Instagram forever, and I've kind of just started actually using it.
Okay.
But I will try to, we'll see how much I can, but I will be trying to post updates. I don't know how much time or service I'll have, but
right.
I plan on doing as much as I can during the event.
Yeah, fair enough. You got plenty to
evenings.
Yeah, you got plenty to do and keep yourself busy there. I will make sure in the show notes, I have your correct Instagram, and I'll post a link to your Facebook as long as you're okay with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's it. No,
actually, I have a YouTube account too, but it's not much there.
Okay. All right.
One final thing is, so the first, actually, now by the time this comes, no, it'll be in time. So I think the first 2 days of the event, there will be a photo video compilation challenge where all the teams are taking pictures and videos. Anyway, They're all getting posted, and then viewers have to vote. So we could definitely, Team USA could definitely use any support when that. So that'll be the day or the day after this airs.
So this will come out at midnight Monday morning. So we'll have the full second day. I don't know how many people will listen to this right away, but folks, if you're listening, go to any of the BMW Motorrad pages, BMW MOTOR8, or it's RRAD pages and find the United States picture. Make sure you vote for that, right?
Yes. Yeah, that'd be much appreciated.
We'll do what we can to help
Don't
you.
vote for the other countries.
No. We want this to be a rigged vote. We want USA winning.
You know what? I'm okay with that.
Is this part of the team score?
It is actually, yeah. It is a scored thing. I don't know how much it plays into your score, but it definitely plays into the score.
Okay. Well, hopefully your pictures are good.
We're going to do our best. We'll see.
Awesome. Well,
if not, just give us the pity vote.
A pity vote. Perfect. I think that's all I got. So we should be good. Folks, if you like what you're hearing, please hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode of the Wild Ass Podcast. You can follow all of the adventures on Facebook or Instagram by looking for @TheRealWildAss. Of course, I am Wild Ass Craig. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you again in a couple weeks. And of course, thank you again, Ben, for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And good luck.